subscribe to Android Discovery Channel, and press the bell icon to watch the interesting and exciting technology video first. Firing up a big budget modern video game inside a Chrome browser window for the first time feels like you're tapping into some arcane magic, like peeking around the corner of technological innovation to see a bright future we never thought would be so close at hand. At least that's how it felt when I first used Google Stadia more than a year ago. Last week, as I loaded into one of Stadia's most high-profile releases to date, Ubisoft's Nordic-themed Assassin's Creed Valhalla, on my 13-inch MacBook Pro with a DualShock 4 controller, I was reminded of how much of a technical marvel cloud gaming truly is. Here is a brand new cutting-edge game, streamed over the internet and playable with the click of a button, no expensive hardware or pricey television required. But I was also confronted with just how little has changed about cloud gaming in the last 12 months. My enthusiasm for Stadia faded very quickly after launch when I began running into both the technical and economic realities of Google's take on cloud gaming. The service arrived in November 2019 half-baked, requiring customers to pay $130 for a Founders Edition and access to a platform that was missing key features Google promised earlier in the year. Even if better than cloud competitors, performance could be inconsistent, too, with sometimes grainy visuals and general stutter and unresponsiveness that made certain games in a subper network scenario downright untenable. On top of that, there was a severe lack of available games, and there was little incentive to play those games on Stadia instead of other platforms. You had to buy your games, too, instead of getting to enjoy a fuller library as part of a Netflix-style subscription. And any multiplayer titles, like Destiny 2, felt like virtual ghost towns, hamstrung by the fact that Stadia players can't play with those on console or PC. 12 months later, some key elements of Stadia remain painfully the same, and playing Valhalla only highlights the lack of progress the technology has made. For one, the game runs just fine, and that's about as good as Google can hope for when it comes to Stadia performance. I still experience occasional audio syncing issues and latency hiccups over Wi-Fi, though the experience improves greatly when I plug an Ethernet cable in, to the point that it does feel almost indistinguishable from playing a game natively on a console or PC. Games like Destiny 2 and Shadow of the Tomb Raider don't look any better than they did last year when we showed you that Stadia's definition of 4K isn't as good as the 4K you'd get from even an Xbox One X, much less a next-gen console or PC. And even then, you'll need a fast internet connection, 4K monitor or TV, and want to stay plugged in via Ethernet at all times to get the most of it. That all makes it sound as if Stadia hasn't improved. While the experience of using the service does feel largely the same, it's everything around the platform that Google has drastically updated in the last 12 months, and it's those changes that now make the Stadia pitch much more convincing. For one, the service is now free. In fact, it's the only totally restriction-free and zero-cost cloud gaming service on the market. You need only a Google account to borrow a powerful PC in the cloud and play whatever you want to buy from the Stadia store. Google has also delivered dozens of new features over the last year, supported more phones, delivered most of the Stadia controller's promises, and expanded its game catalog to more than 80 titles, with the promise of more than 135 total games by year's end. If you opt for the $9.99 a month Stadia Pro subscription, you can play 31 games instantly with no extra cost. Google has delivered dozens of new features and games in addition to launching its free tier. Some of the biggest launches of the last 12 months, from Doom Eternal to Borderlands 3 to Assassin's Creed Valhalla, are on Stadia, too. Earlier this week, Google and developer Bungie announced that Destiny 2 would be moved from Stadia Pro to the service's free tier, marking the first of what Google says will be many free-to-play games that will be playable on Stadia to anyone who signs up for an account. No extra cost required. In that sense, I feel like Stadia is starting to deliver on its promise. even if it's not making a convincing argument to win over die-hard console or PC players. I get the sense that Google is really starting to figure out its cloud gaming vision and communicate it to the casual players, those without console hardware or a gaming PC. It has a better chance of converting into paying customers. But the key going forward will be moving beyond the "it's good enough" strategy that has gotten Stadia to where it is now. That means convincing a prospective buyer of a game like Assassin's Creed Valhalla to buy it on Stadia and not one of the half-dozen other platforms it's available on. That scenario represents Google's biggest and most pivotal challenge going forward. It's made only harder by the launch of next-gen consoles from Microsoft and Sony, with the Xbox Series X, S and PlayStation 5 offering many of the same, and in some cases, better, load times and performance benefits Stadia touted last year without any of the compromises of using a streaming platform. Part of the process in pushing Stadia forward involves changing the perception of the platform, something Google is actively working on. Instead of trying to convince the gaming public that cloud gaming can replace the status quo, Google is instead now pitching Stadia as a promising and ever-improving alternative that is, above all else, free to use. You don't need next-gen consoles, an expensive TV, or a multi-$1,000 gaming PC, Google is arguing. You just need an internet connection, albeit a pretty good one. That's a drastic shift from when the service launched and you had to pay for a controller, a Stadia Pro subscription, and a Chromecast Ultra just to be an early adopter, months before Google's understated launch of the Stadia free tier back in April. Stadia is free. The platform is free, multiplayer is free, you can get games how you want to get games, Stadia Vice President and Product Chief John Justice tells The Verge. For a lot of people that's very compelling. Justice says Stadia's core focus right now is improving its library. Google knows it needs more games if it wants to position Stadia as a viable PlayStation, Xbox, or PC alternative, and it knows it needs a more robust library than the competition if it hopes players will choose Stadia over, say, xCloud and Xbox Game Pass or Amazon Luna. So friends, expected if you like this video, then friends, subscribe to our channel and like and share the video. I need your love and support. I will continue to bring you such exciting technology videos every day. Thank you.